Are you responsible for hiring? Do you do a lot with contractors and consultants? Are you trying to figure out how to eke out the best discounts and deals as you bring on new contractors, but still have high quality staff? You're not alone. Hi, I'm Peter Nichol, Data Science CIO. Today, we're going to talk about some techniques of how to contract more effectively with your partners and your strategic vendors. I'm going to walk through 5 or 6 different examples of how to modify contracts to provide a greater advantage to your organization as you start to grow and expand. In the post that I'll attach in the comments, I'll try to elaborate on a dozen or so different types of specific techniques and how those are implemented. So first off is a concept of rebates or discounts. As the volume of dollars that vendor charges or you incur as a client, there should be some level of discounting. Maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 5%. It depends on their markup and their margins. But essentially, if they spend $1 million versus 5 million versus 10 million, and depending on what you're spending on those contracted services, you should get back some percentage of dollars. Over time, it's going to start to add up. That percent or two becomes 100,000 and then 400,000. And when you multiply it times a dozen or more vendors, it starts to be millions of dollars and allows you to have some dollars to reinvest into your business operations. The second idea is the concept of a boomerang clause. A lot of times contractors or consultants will come in for a short duration, maybe 6 months or 9 months, and they'll leave, only to be rehired 6 or 9 months later or even a year later at a higher rate. They came in at 150 and now they're at 180. They came at 100 and now they're at 1.25. So what this boomerang clause does is it prevents consultants from being rehired within 6 months at a different rate. So it doesn't matter the vendor, it doesn't matter the timeline in general, but it basically sets a broad range and says, hey, if this person's rehired within 6 months, they're going to be at the same rate. And that new company that presents them can just figure that into their margin. But that's the fixed rate, and us as a client are not going to pay any additional dollars. Another concept is called 90-day turnover. 90-day turnover means somebody comes in and that consulting company is incentivized to place somebody who they kind of know isn't a great fit. Now, obviously, they want that consultant probably there forever. But sometimes because of pressures and so forth and how the contracts are written, they put in people into organizations and into positions specifically that they're not great fits for. And as a result, there's turnover. And who suffers? It's us. It's a client. We have to pay for that re-engagement, that new training, all the knowledge and value and the knowledge transfer loss during that transition. What this does is it puts the burden back on that contract company to say, hey, listen, if this employee turns over, this contractor for us, turns over in less than 90 days, you need to pay for that transition. Maybe it's a 2-week period or a 4-week period, but some period. And sometimes there's also a recoup of some of those initial costs, going all the way up to 90 days. Another concept is called right to hire. Typically, these clauses have contracts that say, clauses in these contracts that say something to the effect, if this person is hired within 6 months, you pay a one-time fee of either the full rate of the annual salary, 1 or 200,000, or a percentage. And typically it's 25 to 40% of that base annual fee. So a lot of times this can make sense. But if you're in a position where you're starting to convert a lot of people, this can add up a lot. And when positions start to float up of a couple 100,000, and now you're paying 25% every time you convert, you not only paid for that consultant for a year or maybe 2 years, but now you're paying for a conversion fee of another $50,000 or so, $25,000. It starts to add up a lot. And what this does is it puts a cliff on it. And it says if this individual's been engaged for longer than 6 months, there is no conversion fee. If it's 3 months, there's basically a declining fee from 25% to 15 to 10 to 5 to 0. But after that 6-month period, there's no conversion fee. Another idea is basically it's called recovery of assets. So think about these contractors or consultants that have laptops and peripheral devices, maybe mouses or keyboards. And now we as an organization need to go chase these individuals down and recover our assets. But who's in the best position to recover those assets? That contracting company that holds their last paycheck. So what this does is it transfers the burden of proof back to that consulting company and says, you're responsible for recovering the asset. If it's not recovered within 15 or 30 days, then there's a penalty. What this allows us to do is transfer some of the risk back onto those consulting organizations. So as we start to think about how we contract into the new year and how you optimize your team structure, by putting in place some of these different types of contract adjustments, you start to really optimize and change the favorability of the contract a little bit towards the client or us as a company as you start to expand. As you expand, you gain purchasing power or buying power. And typically you need to take some actions to make sure this is reflected in your contract. Hi, I'm Peter Nichol, Data Science CIO. Have a great week.